Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Polar Opposites, a brand new podcast with That Boy Aqua and our co-host, Nam's Compendium.
Hello.
Hi. It's been a pleasure. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. I don't know if the name's going to stick. It was either this or Gamer Talk, so we'll have to figure something else out if this doesn't work.
Yeah, you have been wanting to do this for a very long time. Like, honestly, I think for like about a year, you've been mentioning this.
I've done everything but get on my fucking knees to convince you to do this, and I hope it works out.
Yeah.
Now, why did we name it Polar Opposites, or why is it at this point in time called that?
Well, I believe at this time we are going with Polar Opposites, and that is because despite our niches on YouTube being very similar, the kind of games we like, what we look for in video games, and what exactly like we focus on mainly in our discussion is very different from each other. Like, we will like the same thing, but for completely different reasons.
Yeah, and I think that gives us a lot of interesting perspectives.
Yeah,
like I mean, for those who may not be aware, you cover a lot of JRPGs, and
yeah,
I mean, even outside of that sphere, you like Kingdom Hearts, DMC. If there's any others, I apologize. But
yeah, it just takes like a glimpse at my channel where it's like, oh, this guy doesn't really talk a lot about like the more traditional mainstream Western kind of game.
Yeah, and
like,
on
you talk a lot about like Batman and Assassin's Creed games.
Some might say it's on the polar opposite of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So how is your day going?
It's been going okay. I woke up about 1 hour before we started doing this.
It's 3 o'clock.
I know.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I haven't really been up to much today because I pretty much got ready for this right away. But lately I've been mostly just working on my own projects.
What are you working on right now?
I'm working on my analysis of the game Digital Devil Saga 2, which is a spin-off of one of the SMT games. And right now I'm still writing the script. That's usually the hardest part for me.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part for everyone, I think.
Yeah. It's
tough.
really, it can get really, like, intimidating. Because you don't want to, like, make yourself look bad. Or say something really stupid that you don't realize is, like, wrong.
But I will say, getting something factually incorrect is great for engagement on a video. Because then you have a bunch of people commenting, correcting you, and dunking on you. And the algorithm's like, hey, wait a minute.
And you need to make sure that mistake is in the first minute.
Yeah, we've all been there, right, guys? So, obviously, we're going to be talking about the Uncharted games today, but I just kind of wanted to ask you what you're working on, just so we can get a baseline of how we're feeling today. Me, personally, I'm in a little bit of a bitter mood, because I just released a very passionate video of mine where I talked about Dying Light. And I talked about it for an hour and 40 minutes. I think it was a solid hour and 40 minutes. And I think it's my best video yet. I think the writing was really good. I think my analysis was pretty deep and also good. I think the editing was pretty good on it as well. And it bombed. Sitting at a 9 out of 10 right now. Yeah, ain't that some shit?
Yeah, that definitely sucks. That is a very good video. You sent it to me early, like when you were still working on it.
I sent it to a bunch of people.
Good. Sorry?
I sent it to a bunch of people.
Yeah, well, I know when you sent it to me, I watched it kind of like right away. Like I tried to watch it as soon as I could, and it was very good. I thought it was very good.
Yeah. So, and you know, on the topic of when a video underperforms or when a video does not go as planned, I will say, I think one of my least favorite things, or no, actually, I'm going to stop sugarcoating it. Something I fucking hate is when you make a video on something outside of your usual niche, like Dying Light, because as mentioned, I usually cover things like the Arkham series, like third-person open world games. And one of the first comments you get is, hey, can you review this game?
Yeah,
because
and it's like something that's like completely unrelated.
Yeah, like I got 3 comments. Some of the first comments I got were, "Hey, can you review Red Dead 2? Hey, can you review Ghost of Tsushima? Hey, can you review Rise Son of Rome?" And it's like I understand like maybe they're doing that because a video is early, and a lot of YouTubers will only look at comments when the video just came out. But I think it actually ends up, I don't want to say disrespectful because I think that's a bit hyperbolic, but it comes across as dismissive of the video. Hey, I don't give a fuck about what you just spent 300 hours working on. Can you do this thing instead? And
yeah,
it's like, I understand that's not the intention, but it always bugs me. I don't like it one bit. But I think I'd be comfortable to move on to something we do like, which is the Uncharted games, right?
Yeah. Let's talk about Uncharted for a bit.
That sounded like a really like unsure yeah. Do you like the Uncharted games, Nick?
Okay, because I like them. Like, I think they're fine experiences to go through, but when I was really thinking about it last night, prior to recording today, because we have our notes here of what we want to talk about, I feel as though out of the big Naughty Dog, the 4 big Naughty Dog games, right? Like Crash, Jack, Uncharted, and The Last of Us.
Yep.
I think really looking back on it, I might be the least enthusiastic about Uncharted.
Why is that?
Well, Uncharted to me it's a very experience-driven kind of game, right?
Yeah, very cinematic.
Like, I think it can be best compared to a roller coaster at a theme park. Not in terms of quality, but in terms of like what you're experiencing. It's about like getting thrills, right? However, you can look back on it with a certain level of fondness. Like, man, I really enjoyed that. But I don't think there's really anything compelling me to want to experience them again.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I can agree with that. Are you trying to imply that if you play Uncharted too much, you're going to puke?
Only if I eat first.
Okay. I think I have a bit of a different fondness towards the games, because I feel like the Uncharted series has always been the gamer's game. It's always been it's been the cinematic movie in a video game format. And I agree that, you kind of look back on it and you look at some of the aspects of it, like the story or mechanically. I mean, mechanically, Uncharted is terrible. The controls are very basic. I mean, it works, but the controls are very basic. There isn't, after you learn the controls within the first hour, there's nothing new that's really thrown at you. And I think with the story, it's fine on the surface, but once you kind of start asking questions, it falls apart really hard. But I think, as you mentioned with the roller coaster ride, it's like the set pieces and the crazy stuff that happens in the game is where the quality and the fondness, for me at least, comes from. It just,
yeah, and that feels like the stuff that's gonna stick with you the most from those games.
Yeah, it's
because when I think of Uncharted, what's that?
I was just saying it's short but sweet.
Yeah, like when I think of Uncharted, I think of stuff like the opening of Uncharted 2, where he's in the train cart that's like falling apart.
Yeah,
I think of the plane set piece from Uncharted 3. It's like these high highs that are visually impressive, technically impressive for the PlayStation 3. And what really like slips me is like, I don't really remember the puzzles with like the journal and all that. Like, that's the stuff I don't really tend to look back on and remember that much.
That's because they suck. And I'll throw that out there right now. I think now this only applies to the first 3 Uncharted games, because something else we kind of wanted to touch on is the very drastic jump in quality and tone from the 3rd to the 4th game. But I think especially in Uncharted 1, 2, and 3, the puzzles suck. I think 3 has maybe 1 or 2 memorable puzzles that took a little bit of effort, but they all devolve into looking at your journal and being told the answer and then having to figure it out, or not figure it out, having to execute that answer.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually, you're kind of touching on a reason that I think the Uncharted games almost function better in memory, because the stuff that you do remember is like the crazy set pieces, being in Uncharted 3, being in the massive sunken ship that, or sinking ship more accurately. And, the plane, the cargo plane, And yet nobody really remembers the puzzles or the moments in between those big set pieces. And it's not necessarily that they're bad. They're just forgettable. And do you think they're forgettable because they lack something? Or do you think it's forgettable because they're overshadowed by the bigger, high action stuff?
I think they might be forgettable because they're mechanically very basic.
Yeah.
It is, like, Uncharted and Gears of War mechanically are pretty much the same. Like, when you really think about it, they're just cover shooters.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Uncharted, like, it puts a much larger emphasis on the kind of, I guess, scrappy nature of, like, an action gunfight where it's like you're constantly trying to switch weapons for, like, stuff you find in the environment.
Yeah.
And that can create some compelling scenarios where you have, like, just your standard assault rifle, you're using it, and then, like, it runs out, and then you quickly dive and you pick up a completely different kind of weapon, and then you have to quickly figure out a way to make the most out of it. Like, that can be fun. And I think Uncharted benefits from playing on higher difficulties because of it.
I actually disagree with that. I agree that the shooting and the combat overall is very kind of slapdash, and
it's like serviceable, right?
Yeah, no, but I mean the way that you play it, you're kind of scrounging around for ammo, you're moving around, you're trying different things, you're kind of just put in a box where you got to figure out what you can actually work with, and that makes the player feel much like Nathan Drake, someone who's not really thinking in the long term. I mean, I think a quote from one of the games is, or not a quote, but something he says frequently is, "I haven't thought that far ahead yet." Mm-hmm. There is no, you're just kind of put in the moment and you're supposed to take it one step at a time. Like, oh, okay, I'm going to dive from this piece of cover to the next to grab to grab this gun, shoot this guy. Oh, I'm out of ammo, got to do it all again. And I think that's really good. But I think Uncharted actually kind of sucks on higher difficulties. And define higher difficulties. Are you talking like brutal or crushing, or do you just mean hard?
Hard.
Okay, yeah, I then I don't disagree as much, because I think the Uncharted games, while I appreciate the higher difficulty settings like brutal and crushing, where you die in basically one hit, the game was not built for it. And I think it's brutally clear when you play on those difficulty modes, which I have done for all of the games except Lost Legacy.
I know the Nathan Drake collection added crushing mode to Uncharted 1, but I'm not sure which of the original games was the one to introduce crushing mode.
Yeah, me neither. They don't work for any of them, though, to be fair.
Like, I tried a little bit of Uncharted 1 on crushing like a few months ago. It is fucking brutal.
Yeah, playing all those games on crushing difficulty are so many fucking hours of my life I'm never getting back. It was painful, and I did it for a platinum trophy because I was a little bitch back in the day, and I thought having a platinum trophy made me superior to other gamers.
It does. It makes you far more valid when you talk about something.
Absolutely.
You have a virtual trophy that you cannot display anywhere. That's just an icon on a list hidden in your profile.
Basically. It was, yeah, every platinum trophy added an inch to my penis.
And how many platinum trophies did you get?
Let's just say I don't wear shorts anymore. Yeah, I think I think the only reason I say that is that Uncharted plays very well into a power fantasy, but I think its mechanics don't often support that kind of playstyle. Or not playstyle, but that kind of desire from the player. And Uncharted 2, the bullet spread, and I've talked about this more in an Uncharted 2 video I have, the bullet spread is so varied and unpredictable that, and I'm not talking the spread like the recoil of a gun, I'm just saying, like, even standing still, the first bullet you fire has a chance to just go outside of where your reticle is. And so it makes precision not rewarding at all, because there's so many times where you're just going to miss for literally no reason other than the game decided that you're going to miss this time. I think when something like that happens, it makes harder difficulty so much more frustrating, because I don't mind dying because I suck. I hate dying because the game sucks. And I think that's why, like, you don't really see people, well, I guess you do, but I don't think you see as many people complaining about difficulty in like the Souls games as much as you would other games, because while the Souls games are really hard, I mean, even Elden Ring, people talk about how hard it is. They're always a very fair kind of hard, I think, and it's not often, in my experience, that you get that you die because of something stupid or something out of your control. It's always, oh, well, I didn't dodge that attack, or, you know, I didn't read that telegraph And I think that's what makes eventually getting over them really rewarding. Getting over the shit in Uncharted 2 on crushing difficulty, I was just like, oh, finally. Like,
because in Uncharted, since it has traditional cover shooter mechanics, what we end up with are situations where you're peeking out and you're shooting a guy, you get hit, your screen turns gray,
yep.
and then you immediately just turtle up and don't do anything until you're back to normal.
Yeah, and it actually, I think a lot of games suffer with that kind of problem. Like, I think of the Infamous games as being that type. Specifically Second Son on the hardest difficulty, it would be you run in, you get shot a bunch, you leave, come back, get shot a bunch more, but you maybe pick off 2 or 3 guys and you leave and come back, and it just makes it less difficult and more tedious. Now that's not to say that having a difficulty where you die in a few hits is bad, but I think that like I said, in Uncharted's case, I just don't think it's really built for it. Now let's talk more about the jump from Uncharted 3 to 4, because I think it really is a big jump tonally, mechanically, and just I guess identity wise. You know, you kind of have an older Nathan Drake. It's a bit more of a grounded and more serious story, as opposed to the first 3 games, which almost always had some sense of supernatural force near the end of the game. In the first game, you had like the Nazi demons or whatever. In the second game, you had Shambhala and the Yetis / monsters there. In the third game, you had the Jinn, worst fucking enemies in the series. And Uncharted 4, you don't really have that.
You know, it's funny that you mention that, because this once again goes back into the whole, you look back on certain parts with a certain level of fondness. I always forget that Uncharted is like this supernatural kind of game.
Yeah.
Like, there's these fucking demons and monsters and shit in every game except the 4th one.
Yeah, and they kind of suck in all the games. Like, especially in the third game, they show up for like 20 minutes at the end of the story. And now, granted, you could argue that it's because the third game's story is the most lackluster. And there were a few developers that had even said, hey, we don't know what the story was when we were developing the set pieces. We had to develop the story around the set pieces, which I think is an interesting way to build the game, but I mean, clearly it didn't work out. Uncharted 3's story has been critically panned across the board pretty much. Although 4, I think, actually suffered from being so grounded. Because you think the third act of Uncharted 4 is, to me at least, was kind of boring. Like, where you're just moving through the jungle again. And I understand that it's kind of, I don't want to say a callback, but it kind of goes back to the game's roots. You know, it's Sully and Nate and Elena trudging through the mud and getting to some lost city. And while I think that's fine, I think by the 4th game, it's like, okay, we know that Naughty Dog can pull this kind of gameplay off. We don't really need it again. And unfortunately, the supernatural elements of Uncharted, while being forgettable, I think did a lot for variety. And, you know, Uncharted 4 has variety. It has like that open segment with the car and the winch. And I think Uncharted 4's puzzles are the best in the series, hands down. But I think that third act just kind of blends together a lot for me. You know, contrasting the first 2 acts, which I think are really good. What do you think about that?
I think the more grounded nature of Uncharted 4 was more so done in service of a more personal story. Because I don't think they wanted to, like, have these fucking grabbed by the ghoulies monsters show up in this story that mainly focuses on the relationship between Nathan Drake and his brother.
Yep.
A fucking skeleton wielding a sword and shield would probably take away a lot from that.
Very true. And you know, Ford actually does tell, I think, the best story in the series. And when we look at Uncharted 3, which tried to do that, where they tried to have a more mature story, but also put the creepy ghoulies in there, it backfired. And the supernatural elements actually overshadowed a lot of the stuff that they were trying to do. And again, this kind of goes back to Uncharted 3 being really all over the place. But yeah, what do you think of the puzzles in Uncharted 4? Do you think they're better or worse than the previous games?
I'll be honest, I don't remember any puzzle from, like, any game.
Really?
Yeah. I always feel like they just sort of blended together for me.
Because I remember Uncharted 4's puzzles really fondly, because I remember, like, racking my brain trying to figure them out. Like, there was one where you had the pieces of paper with the with like the symbols on them, and you had to kind of play a game and figure out which symbols belong to which part of a grid. And I don't remember the puzzle in depth. I just remember liking it a lot. And to clarify, I've played the first 3 Uncharted games within the last year, but I haven't played Uncharted 4 since, I want to say, 2019. So it's been a long time. Now, I want to ask you, what do you think are your favorite parts about the game? And do you actually give a shit about the story?
Uncharted 4 specifically?
All of them.
I want to say I do not care about the literal narrative, but I think that the characters and their interactions are endearing enough for me to stick with it.
Yeah. I think the small talk carries that game on its fucking back.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, with that being said, what's your favorite part about the game? Would it be the dialogue, or do you think it'd be the set pieces more so?
It would probably be the set pieces because it leans the most into the realm of games.
Yep.
And when it does combine both, like witty dialogue alongside crumbling towers, or like the burning, was it a mansion in Uncharted 3? The burning mansion?
Yeah, it was a chateau. The same shit.
Yeah. It's like, those are what stick with me. And then there are a few more quieter character moments, but they don't really add much to the narrative as a whole.
True.
Uncharted 3, I feel like, is the closest one in, I guess, the old PS3 games to try to flesh out things beyond a surface level. However, it doesn't really pay off on that idea, because one of my favorite parts of Uncharted 3 are the first 2 chapters, or chapters 2 and 3, where you play as young Nathan Drake.
Yes.
Because we get to see him outside of just the standard adventure element.
Yeah.
In his like younger years, we get to see him meet Sully, and that is like that should be a significant moment for this franchise. But then that sort of flashback later on in the game, like, really doesn't mean a whole lot other than we meet like the main villain there.
Yeah. And the main villain sucks too.
Yeah, they're set up, but there's no payoff.
Yeah. I will admit, I actually also liked Uncharted 3, that flashback scene, because when I played the game, I was a little kid, and I was like, man, it's hard to project myself onto this like grown ass man. And so I really liked that. And I also, when I was a kid, I had the same haircut as Nathan Drake when he was younger. And so it was so easy for me to project myself onto that. And so even like when I first played the game, I was like, oh, that's so cool.
And it's kind of like a comparison I noted down. This is the most generic comparison ever, but it's like an Indiana Jones movie. Like, you're not there for complex narratives. The main appeal is the sense of adventure and fun character dynamics.
Yeah, I've seen all the Indiana Jones movies. When I was a kid, I couldn't tell you fuck all about it.
It's like, you don't go there to see fucking Harrison Ford, like, bond with his son in a walkie-talkie segment.
Yeah.
You go there to see Harrison Ford, like, take out a sword, have a sword fight with a guy, or better yet, the guy wants to have a sword fight with him, and he just shoots him.
Yeah. Holy shit. I just realized, if somebody asked me, they're like, yo, should I watch the Indiana Jones movies? I'd be like, yeah, they're good, but I couldn't tell you anything about them. And I think, honestly, I think the same goes for Uncharted. I mean, the only reason I could tell you about them now is because I've recently replayed them, but it is very similar in the sense that they kind of, that on an individual basis, they don't, or sorry, at a microscopic level, they don't hold up as much, but in memory, they're so good. So,
but I will say the sole exception to this would be Uncharted 4.
Yes.
Because I think that game had the benefit of being released post The Last of Us, where Naughty Dog as a studio showed themselves willing to delve into more personal stories that are willing to slow down by a lot, and we get a lot more focus on the characters and what they want and what they're going through. In Uncharted 4, even just from the start of the game, we get to see something we never saw in the series before, which is what Nathan Drake does when he is not on a treasure hunt.
Yeah.
We get to see part of his home life. We get to see his new job. We get to see him and Elena talk about old times. And then we also get a motivation for Nathan Drake. We get to see him slowly regain that lust of wanting to do something exciting. Like, one like a scene that sticks out to me, even though I haven't played the game in a long time. They're talking, and he's looking at a photo.
I was just about to say that.
Her, and he's just imagining like a journey on that island.
Yeah. Like, and Uncharted 3 kind of tried to touch on the same thing, like this obsession with like getting to the treasure and like doing these exciting things. But it just kind of said it, and that was it. But I feel like Uncharted 4, especially in that scene, like you can see he's daydreaming about this shit. It doesn't even go into like why. It doesn't have to. What just matters is that it's like that's his passion, and like it if he doesn't indulge in it, then it literally takes over everything else, and it impedes on things like his relationship with his now wife, you know, and even later on in the game when she finds out that he was lying to her. I don't know if you remember, but it's like Nate, Sully, and Sam are all talking about their plans for this heist that they're going to pull, or not the heist, but the treasure that they're going to try and grab, and Elena tracks him down and finds out.
Yeah,
and
not my original observation, but it's done right after one of the most exciting set pieces in the game.
Which one is that?
The chase in the city where you're on the Jeep.
Oh, yeah.
You go through this insane set piece, like near-death experiences, jumping around onto different cars, fighting people and all that, and you completely forget about Elena during all that. And then right after that, when you're still kind of on that high, that rush of like what you just went through, then the game sends it crashing down when she is just behind the door that you open.
I didn't think of that. That is a really good observation. Who said that?
That was from a Joseph Anderson video.
Oh, fucking course, it's Joseph Anderson.
Yeah.
I say that like it's a bad thing. It's just because he's like, I think you and I, as people who try to make like reviews of games, Joseph Anderson is like that unattainable talent that I don't think we'll either ever reach.
He is so dedicated to what he does,
and it's like
that it's like nuts,
and it's like almost like, and that's what I mean. And so when you hear something insightful about Uncharted, you're like, oh yeah, of course he fucking saw that, because none of us would have noticed that. And I think that's really cool. We kind of talked about what your favorite part of the Uncharted game is. What do you think is your least favorite part? Like, what is something that could be completely removed from the Uncharted games or just the series as a whole, and you would not even notice?
Uncharted 1's jet ski segment.
No, I'd notice. I would notice. Like, I'd be so much happier. That's an interesting answer. I forgot. Again, I was like, yeah, Uncharted 1, good game. I remember all the fond memories, and I completely forgot that I wanted to rip my fucking hair out during that jet ski segment. And on crushing difficulty, stop. You're out to lunch. It's
you die in a single hit on crushing, I bet.
You do. I remember being stuck on that for hours.
I remember the first time I saw that was because my friend was playing through Uncharted 1 on the PS3 because he bought 1 and 2 used after he played 3. Mm-hmm. And when he was playing through 1, the jet ski looked miserable.
Yeah.
Like, especially the part where you have to go up the waterfalls, like up the little like bumps.
Yeah, and there's all the barrels floating down
towards
towards
there's all
you.
The fucking mines that just blow up instantly.
The purest definition of horse shit.
Yeah, and if you stop to aim, you get pushed back in the current.
Yeah, like it is actually horrible.
Also, Uncharted 2's final boss is terrible.
I mean, not just Uncharted 2. Like, 3's was probably the best. Because it was just a QuickTime event. But Uncharted 1 was awful as well.
Uncharted 1 was like, it had a really boring final boss. It didn't even like, I remember when I first played that game myself, I got stuck on it because I wasn't sure what the game wanted me to do.
Yeah.
Because the guy, whatever the fuck his name is, he has a gun with a laser sight on it.
And he can't miss.
And the game teaches you early on where snipers have that same laser sight that if you roll, it will not hit you. So
and then they just say fuck off.
Yeah, because there was a laser sight. I decided to roll towards him because assuming he would not hit me because of it. Mm-hmm. But no, once you pass a certain point, you just die instantly.
Yep. Yeah. And it's like if you leave cover at the wrong time, you just, and it is an instant death. Like it's not he takes a sec to cock it and shoot. No, he just fucking pumps you.
It just like moment. Locks on, dead instantly.
Yeah.
Like that laser may as well just kill you.
I mean, at least Lazarevich was a little more forgiving. In fact, I would actually say I would agree if somebody said Lazarevich was the best boss fight in the series, because it was the only fight that actually felt like a boss fight. It was bad, And I mean, like Uncharted 3's was just a quick time event. Uncharted 4's was much the same, although I think that is probably the best boss fight in the series just because it strikes a good balance between being cinematic, being a quick time event, but not being like unfun. Because while Uncharted 2's fight was relatively deep compared to the other boss fights, it wasn't fun. It was boring. It was tedious. It was really frustrating in a lot of cases too.
Yeah, because are there checkpoints in that fight?
No.
Yeah.
Crushing
so
difficulty?
It's like,
fuck off.
So you have to like hit him like 10 fucking times.
9 times total.
9 times with the fucking explosive gel goo, and he can kill you in one hit.
Yep.
It is the biggest load of shit ever.
Yeah. I think if I were to pick one thing that I would want to remove from the Uncharted games, I guess barring 4, get rid of the puzzles. They suck. In all the games, they're not fun. I talk about this. I've talked about this before, but Uncharted likes to give you puzzles that you have the solution to. Like in Uncharted 1, one of the first puzzles you get is there are 4 pillars that need to be rotated. Or no, there's 4 buttons, and you need to press them in a certain order. And then you look at your journal, and you have the exact answer. Like, it might as well be labeled 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you spend the next 2 minutes actually executing it, because every time you press the right one, the camera pulls back, it shows you that something's moved in the room, and then it pulls back into you, and then you have to go to the other one, press it, camera pulls back, the whole shebang, and you gotta do that 4 times before it finally pulls back again, and it shows that it's opened. And it was just boring. Solving the puzzle took 1 button press to just open the journal, and because the game wants to be convenient, which I don't have a problem with this, it flipped your journal to the exact page that had the answer.
Mm-hmm.
And then actually executing the solution is where all the, I guess, not even challenge, is where all the gameplay came from. And then at the end of Uncharted 2, you have to rotate certain pillars to make sure that they're displaying the right symbol. This is the end of the second game now. We're 2 games deep, and it's the same thing. You just flip your journal open and it tells you what to do. And they're really unengaging. They're boring. And I think they do more to kind of pull me out of the roller coaster ride than anything else. Because it's just like, I just want to get it over with.
It's like if your roller coaster breaks down halfway through, you gotta wait for the maintenance man to fix the panel.
Yeah. Uncharted is a roller coaster ride, and the puzzles are just waiting in the fucking lineup. And you forgot your phone.
oh no.
And I just think they should be gone. Even like Uncharted 4 had better puzzles, but I'd be willing to sacrifice that part of the game. So here's a question, and I think this is going to be an easy answer for the both of us, but what is your favorite Uncharted game?
Yeah, 4.
Okay, yeah, me too. What do you think about Lost Legacy, though?
I never played it.
Huh.
I own it, but I've never played it.
You should play it. I think Lost Legacy gets a lot of shit because, and we shouldn't go too deep in this side tangent here, but a lot of people hate Nadine from Uncharted 4 because, honestly, because she's a female, is what it seems to boil down to. We've had like off recording discussions about how people will complain that Nadine is able to beat the shit out of Nathan Drake and Sam when she's trained military, and their argument is that Nathan Drake is heavier and therefore overpowers her, and that he has beaten up hundreds of people throughout his adventure days. They're like, and so it's just clear pandering to the feminist SJWs, and I think it's the stupidest fucking argument I've ever seen, because Nathan Drake hasn't fought in years, and he's old. Like, the entire point of Uncharted 4 is that or not the point, but like the entire premise is that he hasn't done adventures in a long time. He's trying to abandon that life. And Nathan Drake was never much of a fighter leading up to that point anyways, regardless of how many people he actually killed. So I think that's kind of, and so I think Lost Legacy, unfortunately, led to a lot of people going in with Nadine being just written off as it is. I think a lot of people like Chloe. I don't think there's any issues with her.
I always thought people wouldn't have liked Lost Legacy because, like Miles Morales, it is developed more so as a holdover kind of game. Like, as an extra sort of made on a budget, and it costs less to buy, but it's like a shorter experience.
It's almost like a spin-off.
Yeah.
And I think that's fine. And I think people overreacted back then, and I think they're overreacting with Miles Morales as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just moving past that, I think a lot of people already had written off Nadine as a character. And it sucks because I think that game does a lot to make her more enjoyable. I mean, it doesn't change that. I will admit Nadine isn't the best in Uncharted 4. But I think a lot of people went in with this bias against her. And I think that resulted in Lost Legacy just not being talked about as much as Uncharted 4, which also might be a product of it starring people that aren't the main character. So it could be something like that. What do you think is the worst Uncharted game?
First one.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like technically impressive for the time, but it's still not like anything remarkable. Even for 2007, I think there's games that play better and were just more interesting as a whole. Like,
yeah, I agree.
Uncharted 1 came out the same year as the first BioShock game, which is something that people still talk about.
And I think putting Uncharted 1 at the bottom there really, what's the word I'm looking for? It really exemplifies how important the gameplay is in these games, because I think personally, I've watched a lot of Uncharted critiques and reviews and whatnot. I think a lot of people focus way too much on the story in these games.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you can critique a story all you want, but I think, like, for example, people write off Uncharted 3 because it has a bad story, but I think Uncharted 3 probably has the best gameplay out of the entire series. And I think a testament to just how important gameplay is that I feel like most people would say Uncharted 1 is the worst. It's not bad, but it's definitely the worst.
Yeah. I'm also going to disagree what you just said about gameplay, if only because Uncharted 4's grappling hook allowed for a lot more interesting combat arenas.
What particular part are you disagreeing with?
You said Uncharted 3 had the best gameplay. I think Uncharted 4 does.
Oh, yeah, sorry. No, I agree with that. I was meaning of the three trilogies.
Oh, of the
first
1, 2,
trilogy.
3?
Yes.
Yeah,
no,
probably
I
3.
agree. I think 4 is the fucking rope swing in 4 is so good.
Yeah,
it is so dope.
Can we talk about that for a second? Because I wrote.
Yes.
Yeah. So Uncharted 4's grappling hook is so fucking good. It is a great idea. It makes.
Wait, what year did Uncharted 4 come out? Was it 2015?
Yeah, I think 2015, 2016.
2016, of course. That's why it has a grappling hook.
The fucking year of the grappling hook, 2016. Every game.
It all makes sense now. Yeah,
Yeah.
fucking Assassin's Creed Syndicate, Mirror's Edge Catalyst. Those are the only two off the top of my head, but there were a lot that had them. And
Dying Light?
Uncharted 4, obviously. Dying Light, yep. That came out 2015.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And it's like, the grappling hook made exploration visually more interesting, added a bit more tension to, like, set pieces where something's collapsing, because you gotta, like, you gotta notice that there's a little hook icon that you can use. Mm-hmm. Still fairly scripted, but it makes it feel a lot more like something you came up with. And in terms of gameplay, arenas in Uncharted 4, they're structured in a way where there's usually something to swing on to get from one vantage point to another, which allows you to play a lot more aggressively.
Yeah, I think combat is really... And if we talk about the power fantasy part of Uncharted, getting headshots while you're swinging on a tree is so sick.
Yeah, if it's like the power fantasy, there's swinging on a tree, just like shooting at a guy, and then when you're swinging and use the melee button close to a guy, he just sort of lunges towards them from the air, just knocks them out instantly.
Yeah, it's so good.
It is like the action movie fantasy in a video game.
Okay, you know what? There's one thing I got to say that the first 3 games does significantly better than the 4th game and Lost Legacy. Secrets. Extras. In the first 3 Uncharted games, you can model swap any character. You can play the entire game looking like Sully, Elena, any of the bad guys, Donut Drake, Donut Sully, Donut Elena.
Oh, right. Is Donut Drake not in 4?
No, I think he is, but you can only do model swaps for Nathan Drake in 4. And if you do a model swap, say you want to play as like a Sully that's in a suit, it just means that whenever Sully's in the game, he'll be wearing a suit. And I think that's really lame, because that was one of my favorite parts of the first 3 Uncharted games. Like, because it made repeat playthroughs, like, as stupid as it sounds, it made repeat playthroughs so much more fun. Because now it's like, it was goofy. It's like, oh, Chloe is having a conversation with herself. Mm-hmm. Or you're seeing, like, old-ass Sully hanging out of a cargo plane. And it was more visually interesting, and it made replaying the game so much more fun. But in Uncharted 4, they just don't have that. And I hope maybe they've patched that in. It has been a few years. Something the Uncharted 4 does better than the trilogy, though, is Uncharted 4 allows you to replay chapter set pieces, specific scenarios instead of, for example, the cargo plane. Or no, let's not do cargo plane. Let's do
Young Drake's chase sequence.
Yes, that's it. That's at the end of chapter 2, right? Or it might be chapter 3.
Either chapter 2 or 3.
And you have to play through everything leading up to that point to get to your favorite part. Uncharted 4, you can replay any scenario in the game. So you select your chapter, and then you can select the scenario. And so you can just replay most of your favorite set pieces and combat encounters. And it makes experimenting with the bonuses, like the different guns that they give you for collecting however many treasures, a lot more fun. And I think that is like something nobody talks about with the Uncharted game, or with Uncharted 4, and I think it's so good.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever played any of the Uncharted multiplayer?
This actually goes into my first experience with Uncharted as a whole.
Ooh.
My first time ever seeing Uncharted as a game was when Uncharted 3 came out. My friend got it, and it was New Year's, and I had him over at the time, and we tried out like the first hour and a bit, but because it was single player, it was like, oh, let's just find something like that we just play co-op or whatever. But yeah. Uncharted 3 had a horde mode that was co-op.
Mm-hmm.
And we spent a lot of time playing that. Like Uncharted 3's...
Did you like it?
I remember liking it, yeah. But that could also be because I was playing with my friend. I don't remember much about the horde mode, to be honest, but...
You could play the worst game ever and you'd enjoy it if you're playing it with a friend.
Yeah.
Prime example, some of my fondest memories over the last couple of months have been when we have played Yeek together.
Hell yeah. I would never play that game by myself. Fucking Y2K, never play that myself.
Yeah, well, we haven't played it in like 3 months. We got to get back on track. We're gonna forget the story and have to start all over again.
Oh, no, I don't want to forget my Yeek experience.
It is truly unforgettable. Sorry, back on track. Did you play any of the PvP?
I played the beta of Uncharted 4's multiplayer because I think it came with the Nathan Drake collection at launch. And I honestly do not remember anything from that experience. And I think there's like character powers, maybe?
Yeah. I played Uncharted 3's PvP a little bit growing up. It was really good. I didn't try the Horde mode much because I didn't have friends.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have friends that wanted to play Uncharted. Everyone was playing COD or something. And Uncharted 4, I also played by myself, but I played the Horde mode quite a bit because it was really good for leveling up. So this is the other thing that pisses me right the fuck off. In the single player, you cannot play as, say, Sully, but in multiplayer, you can. And so I was like, in order to play as these other characters, I guess I'll just unlock them in the multiplayer. And that's right. You could run around the map and pick up certain upgrades and shit like that. And I think the multiplayer was a lot of fun. PvP-wise in Uncharted 4. It was good. I didn't play the beta, but the full game, it was dope. And the emotes were dope, too. You could make Nathan Drake twerk. That's some next-gen shit. Like, I mean, people always talk about Fortnite when it comes to emotes, and I love Fortnite, but Uncharted 4 had a fuckload of emotes, and they were really funny.
Didn't Uncharted 2 have, like, a small co-op campaign?
I don't know. I think it had a little bit of PvP, but I don't remember playing it. I think Uncharted 3 was when the multiplayer was, like, fully fleshed out.
I swear, I remember one of the games having, like, some form of, like, co-op, where it's, like, well, that wasn't a horde mode, that was, like, you and Sully, like, Nathan Drake and Sully were, like, the two playable characters, or it was either Nathan Drake and Chloe. Like,
I hope that shit's real.
I think it was in Uncharted 2 on the PS3, because I don't think the multiplayer made it to the Nathan Drake collection in any of the games.
Nope. Unfortunately not. And I mean, I get it, because it's like if you're playing Uncharted on PS4, you might as well play Uncharted 4 multiplayer, which I think is like the best rendition of it.
Yeah, it's like at this point, nobody's probably playing Uncharted multiplayer. Like, they were always just like extra bonuses on top of this, like the campaigns. And the Nathan Drake collection was already a pretty good deal. It was 3 fucking decently sized campaigns for like a whatever price.
It was just the price of a full game.
Yeah, and it got with like 3 old ones that were like at 60 frames per second, which we didn't have before, which is cool.
Yeah, I think the Nathan Drake collection is a steal, especially nowadays because it's like $30.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've never played Uncharted before, holy shit, what a way to get into it!
Didn't Sony hand out the Nathan Drake collection for free for a bit when the world ended?
Yeah, it was part of their their stay home initiative.
Yeah,
it was like they gave away a bunch of free games so that to incentivize people to stay home and game, which super cool. Mm-hmm. And yeah, they gave away the Uncharted collection, and Uncharted Nathan Drake collection was free on PlayStation Plus a few years back.
Yeah, and I think Uncharted 4 is one of the games on the PS Plus collection if you have a PS5.
It is. Not, but you'd be playing the PS4 version, so you wouldn't be getting the 60 FPS patch that comes with the Legacy of Thieves collection.
Oh yeah, isn't that coming to PC?
I think so. It's already out on PS4 or PS5, which is really good.
I think Uncharted 4 and Lost Legacy are coming to PC in like a month or something.
I
or this
cannot
month.
Fucking wait for the mods that are going to come out of that, because I'm trying to think what would be like an interesting mod in Uncharted 4.
I can see them modding in like old weapons that weren't brought back.
Oh yeah, or modding the ability to actually like character swap. That'd be cool. So here's I guess the last thing we'll talk about as far as Uncharted goes before we move on to the movie. Do you think, or would you want another Uncharted game?
Only if the series gets new gameplay ideas, because with the way things are right now, Uncharted 1, 2, 3, and even arguably most of 4 is very samey.
The only thing I will give Uncharted 4, aside from the rope swing, is that stealth is far better in Uncharted 4. Like, there's an actual stealth system, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, and it's like, in between, like, each release, there was always tweaks made to, like, aiming, the melee combat, and, like, stealth and all that. But it's nothing, like, big. Like, if you've played Uncharted 1, you kind of know what to expect out of the other ones.
Yep. Obviously to lesser extent 4. But yeah, especially the first trilogy. If you've played 1, you played them all.
And Uncharted 4 had this one chapter that was, like, a lot more open-ended. And from what I've heard, Lost Legacy also did that.
Yeah. Lost Legacy, actually, the entire game was that. It was, you had a big hub that you drove around in, and you could do stuff within that hub, like some stuff, but your entire goal was like there was 5 locations you had to go to, and you can go there in any order you wanted and just, piss around. It was really good.
Yeah, I think that if they were to bring back the series, expanding on that on a much grander scale would be the only reason for me to want to play through any more of them.
I don't think I'd want an open world though.
I wouldn't want like a full open world. No, I'd want like larger areas that really leans into the idea of being like a treasure hunter with like optional things.
Okay, sorry, never mind. I just had the thought of like running around like Yemen or something like that with like a rope swing and all of Nate's like parkour abilities, and I would actually kind of be sick. But that kind of contradicts what I think, or what I appreciate about Uncharted, especially nowadays, is that it feels like the antithesis of Western AAA gaming, which is everything's a fucking 80-hour open world game, and Uncharted has just been mostly a linear, short but sweet experience. But yeah, I don't think I'd want another Uncharted game.
Yeah.
Because like you said, they're the same. I mean, if there's set pieces that can be used to justify a new Uncharted game, or there's a really good story that you could tell, which I don't think there is, given how well Uncharted 4 kind of wrapped everything up, and the fact that it's called A Thief's End. It might as well just be called Uncharted, the last one.
Yep.
I just think that there's nothing really new that they could do with the gameplay that doesn't get to a point where it's kind of straying away from what really is Uncharted. And I also think that they can't really do anything new with the set pieces, because even the stuff in Uncharted 4 that we've seen most of it before. Like, I mean, Uncharted 4 has a convoy mission where you have to jump from vehicle to vehicle, and it was cool the first time, it was cool the second time and the first time, but the third time you're like, okay, yeah, we kind of know the deal here. They at least mixed it up with the rope swing, and I think other set pieces like the tower that collapses while you're in it is really cool. But again, we've been in a lot of collapsing buildings in Uncharted, and they always seem to fucking collapse. So I don't really know if it's if having more set pieces really justifies that.
Yeah. With the way things are now, it feels like The Last of Us feels like a more natural evolution of Uncharted. It takes things that people were expecting out of that series, which is the linear approach, but The Last of Us puts a lot more incentive to explore around these environments, because there's resource management. You can find permanent upgrades to make yourself actually better at the game.
Yeah, and that resource management plays into gameplay huge. Like, not even just a matter of scrounging for ammo, but scrounging for shivs that you can use to kill people in stealth far more efficiently than you would before.
Yeah,
And
like,
I think the Last of Us games, I mean, I haven't played Last of Us 2, but they certainly have a more engaging plot than Uncharted.
I haven't played The Last of Us 2 either.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm more so talking in terms of like conception, less so overall execution.
Yeah.
So if it's like I think just conceptually The Last of Us serves as a natural evolution of Uncharted rather than saying this game is better than that game.
Yeah. I mean, I think none of us would be insane for saying the Uncharted stories are weaker than The Last of Us 1, at least. I think The Last of Us 1's a great story. Super good. And so moving on to the evolution of Uncharted, what do you think, just conceptually, or the idea of the Uncharted movie?
Just an idea of an Uncharted movie, no matter what, would probably just seem like a lesser Indiana Jones movie. Because the entire appeal of Uncharted was that it was an action movie that you played.
Mm-hmm.
And when you take away the controller and you're left with the just the story and characters, those were never really the series' like strong suits.
Yeah.
Unless we're talking about 4. And that's not to say that they
But even
couldn't.
in 4, it was like the gameplay was so much better.
Yeah, and that's not like to say that they couldn't try to make it work. I haven't seen the Uncharted movie. But
I have.
It's like an uphill battle.
Yeah. So what do you think of the casting? Because I agree with everything you just said, that, you know, kind of taking a movie and turning it into a video game experience or putting it in the video game medium is a really cool idea, but then taking that and putting it back into a movie just doesn't make any sense. So what do you think of the casting, specifically for Sully and Nate?
I think having a young Nathan Drake played by Tom Holland isn't an inherently bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's a talented actor. He is definitely, like, fit. He can do any sort of stunt, really, that you want him to for this kind of movie. And he's a hot name right now. Like, it's a marketing thing.
And honestly, you can even see from some of the promotional images, he kind of looks like Nathan Drake.
I've seen the image where he has the gun holsters with the white shirt and the pants.
Yeah.
And I think that fits for a young Nathan Drake.
I was convinced. And to further add to this, I've seen the movie, and Tom Holland does a decent job. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not like he knocks it out of the park, but I think there wasn't any point in the movie where I was like, oh yeah, that's supposed to be Nathan Drake.
Yeah.
Sully, on the other hand, is literally Mark Wahlberg, and that is it. There was no acting. It's like whatever Mark Wahlberg's fucking character is from Ted, that was him, but just in the Uncharted movie. It was awful.
It's like, casting is one thing, the script is another.
Yeah. The
Like,
only thing I think I get annoyed, or I think I disagree with, is that it seems like a lot of people just hate that it's Tom Holland because he's just a popular name, and they're just kind of tired of him, which I think is kind of unfair to him.
Yeah, because actors are talented. Like, a lot of the people who star in Marvel movies are talented. Like, even just beyond the MCU. Andrew Garfield, people shit on him as an actor for a long time, but that's how you know they never watched The Social Network. Because he is a talented man.
And, I mean, shit on the MCU movies all you want, but you can't deny that the cast there are really just good actors. I mean, they might not have good scripts, and we could sit here and argue about that till the fucking cows come home, but the cast is good, and I think Tom Holland was a decent choice because you know that he can pull off that kind of role. Yeah,
Tom Holland was also in that Pixar movie, right? Like, Onward?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was.
Yeah. It's like, he's just typecasted to play young characters. I don't really see an issue with that as long as he delivers a good performance and as long as the script is also serviceable, but I haven't seen Uncharted, so I can't say.
Well, I have seen it, and I just want to say, thanks to Tom Holland being casted, this is one thing I will complain about. The amount of annoying teenage girls in the movie theater that would not shut the fuck up during the entire movie, I believe is his fault.
Oh my god, is there a shirtless scene?
There is a shirtless scene, and half the theater fucking erupted.
Oh no.
I went there with my friend Anthony, and we sat down, and there was a group of teenage girls behind us. I assume teenage, but a group of girls behind us, and they just would not shut up the entire movie. And Anthony leaned over to me at one point. He's like, hey, if they don't stop talking, I'm going to turn around and tell them to shut the fuck up.
Oh my god.
I was like, dude, you have more balls than I do. Because I would never have the balls to tell someone in a theater, hey, shut up.
Yeah. Because what if you tell them to shut up and like there's this fucking bodybuilder?
Yeah, or what if they're like, hey, fuck you, and then they start being louder just to piss you off?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess then they get thrown out, but it's like, I don't want to have a conflict. I just want to try and enjoy the movie. But
you don't want to have a conflict and then ruin it for everyone else.
Yeah, exactly. Because in order to get someone to stop being disruptive in the movie, you have to yourself be disruptive in the movie.
Yeah. When Sonic 2 comes out, if Shadow appears on screen, that's going to be me. I'm going to be that teenage girl.
Yeah, it's like I had a similar thing happen, but with children when I went and saw Detective Pikachu.
Yeah.
But I don't fault that as much because that is like that's a kid's movie. Like, let's be real. I think the audience for that is probably adults or people like you and me who kind of grew up with Pokemon, but it's mostly kids. And
but the majority of it is going to be children.
Yeah,
like,
and
it is targeted towards them. It's like a cute family movie.
When the movie started, this little kid, Mom, it's Pikachu, and she's like, oh, honey, That didn't annoy me as much as like he's a kid. He's whatever. Yeah. He's having a good time. But I think I only got annoyed at the Uncharted movie because it's like you should be old, and if you're old enough to go see a movie on your own, you're old enough to know the fucking etiquette. Although I will admit, having a theater make noise during a movie is fine. Like people clapped at the end of No Way Home. That was really good. And I actually think Jackass, the new one, Jackass Forever, was one of the best movie theater experiences I've had in a while, because it's like whenever something would happen, the entire theater would just erupt in laughter, and whenever like somebody got hit, the whole theater, ooh, you know what I mean? Like it was, and it was really fun. And sorry, I guess we've kind of moved on to like theater etiquette and like going to see movies, but it's because I couldn't hear some words of dialogue because these people were so loud.
What if those were the dialogue that like the ones you couldn't hear? Those are the reason why people don't like that movie. And why you think it's fine?
Yeah, overall, I actually like the Uncharted movie. I haven't said that yet. I thought it was good. It references a lot of the games, and it actually references like Naughty Dog a lot. I don't want to spoil anything, of course, but I think it's a good movie. There are people who are saying that it's a disgrace to the Uncharted franchise. No, it's not. I don't think it is. I think it's just Twitter being overreactive, like usual.
Hyperbolic.
Yeah. And I think, I'm going to be honest with you guys. As far as YouTubers, a lot of YouTubers are saying that the movie is awful. I guarantee you it is just because a lot of YouTube videos that are negative get more clicks. It is a proven fucking fact.
Yep.
And it is so much easier to just shit on something, especially the Uncharted movie, where you know it's going to be kind of bad anyways, than it is to just give like a balanced review of it, in my personal opinion. And I think you see that with reviewers had a fucking field day with Deathloop. Like, yes, IGN said it was really good, and like those kind of like journalist outlets did that, but the independent reviewers, where a lot of them were saying like, oh, it's actually horrible, it's like one of the worst games of the year. It's like, no, it's not. Deathloop's fine. It's not. I mean, I'm not saying the Uncharted movie is like amazing or better than anyone was expecting, but it's just, yeah, it's good. It's in fact, it's just like the Uncharted games, where the story is like, yeah, the story was okay, but like, I mean, the set pieces were cool. I like that. Some of the dialogue was funny, because that's the other thing. The moment to moment dialogue in the game, or in the games, are funny, and in the movie is funny too. It's entertaining. But yeah, I do think that the Uncharted movie is worth seeing if you've played the games. If you haven't played the games, I don't know how your mileage may vary.
Would you say if they haven't played the games, it would just be better off playing the games instead of seeing the movie?
Yes. Because you're going to understand the part about the Uncharted movie that's really cool is that it's very derivative of the games. Like, I mean, you have the cargo plane. And I think the reason that was so fun for me was because I've already played the game, so I know what they're trying to emulate. And it's really cool because this isn't spoiling, because this is something that happens in the trailer and it happens in the games. But during the cargo plane, when, you know how Nathan has to pull the cord on the crate that he's hanging off of, and it's a QuickTime event?
Mm-hmm.
When Tom Holland is doing that in the movie, he's like reaching and like shaking his hand, and he's like barely reaching it, and it looks like a QuickTime event. And they recreate that shot so well. And so it's like, without the game, having played the game, yeah, it kind of loses some of that impact. But that's why I feel like if you've played the game, the movie is so much cooler, because you see that and you're like, whoa. I mean, obviously they played the fucking games, but it was a cool thing to see because it looked just like a QuickTime event. I think as far as video game movies go, it was actually one of the better ones, though the bar isn't high. Although Sonic the Hedgehog movie did raise that bar. I think Sonic the Hedgehog was really good. I like that movie.
Yeah, Sonic's probably the best video game movie.
And if anyone disagrees, I'd just like to remind them that Sonic the Hedgehog flosses twice during that movie. Instantly puts it above anything else.
Yeah, he emotes.
He he does. He emotes. He actually builds a tower on Eggman, and then edits his wall so that there's a window in it, and then he snipes him with his golden AR.
Yeah, he starts cranking 90s.
Yeah, and then he flosses with his victory royale. That was fun. We should do it again sometime.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think that's pretty much all I have to say about the Uncharted games. If there's anything else you'd like to add, feel free.
No, I think I've said everything I wanted to. It's pretty much just, I'll reiterate, it's like a roller coaster. You go in for the thrills, you have a good time, you can look back on it with some fondness, but like, it's not something I would want to do again anytime soon. It's like, I'm fine with just that one time.
Yeah, and it's one of those, like, the Uncharted games are never something I'd replay, but they're always something I'd recommend to somebody who hasn't played them before, because they are ultimately unique. So I think that concludes our first episode. Nick, Nam, Compendium.
Yeah, I think that's it.
It's been a pleasure.
Yes, sir.
And we'll thanks for watching or listening. Thanks for listening. Oh God, I'm so used to saying thanks for watching. Yeah, I think that's where we'll cut it off. We'll see you next time on Polar Opposites.